Hi, I'm Vic Nichols. I'm here to help you master your communication skills. This information is going to help you get what you want in your personal and in your business relationships. I've been in business for over 40 years. I've run and owned marketing companies, publishing companies, and advertising agencies. And while working hard on making money and building my business, I've been working on my communication skills for the last 40 years. And what that's done is help me build very strong networks, which is really the key to your success. Who you know is what's going to get you to where you want to go. I have found through the years some of the problems that people have with communication, and I think the root of that issue is the me mentality. It's not about you. It's about them. It's about being able to listen, taking that information, and then being able to internalize it and talking to someone, not just having a conversation. You have to listen. All you're doing is now trying to tell people about you, as opposed to taking a breath, listening, and let them tell you about them. That's probably one of the biggest keys, and one of the things I'm seeing more and more when I'm talking to people, young and older too. They don't understand sometimes that is the way, or probably the thread. That's the most important part of building a relationship, is to get away from me, I'm great, and everything I have to tell you and everything I have to sell you is the best thing since sliced bread. Not the case. Relationship is what it's all about, and that's how you're going to build your network, and that's how you're going to build your business, short-term and long-term. How not to screw up your communication. There are many tactics that people talk about, but I think one of the interesting things about not screwing up your communication is actually knowing that the other person is listening to the things that you're saying, and you need to understand that what you're saying is important. So make your communication important. But one of the other things to do is to check and make sure they understand what you're telling them. Meaning, if you're trying to explain something or you're trying to explain a point, and this is again in business and in personal life, and you look at the person, check them along the way. Make sure that they understand what you're saying. So ask them to repeat what it is that you told them. And if they repeat it to you, then you say, oh, okay, so you understand that. They have now started to think about what you said. They've repeated it themselves and they've said it to you. You will be able to tell at that point whether or not they really understood you. If they did not understand you, you stop there and you rephrase it and you re-explain it in a different way so they can understand it. All people do not understand things the same way. And if we don't check, we assume we told them something and they heard something completely different if we don't check. I think that's probably one of the most valuable things and lessons that I learned throughout my entire career, is making sure that people understand what it is you're trying to convey. Another tool in conjunction with listening is also learning how to read a room. And what I mean by that is, let's just take, for instance, you walking into a room, a networking event, and it's a new situation in a new environment, and you're walking around and you're looking at people. What you want to do is, instead of just getting right into it, look at who they're talking to, maybe step up to two people who are already in conversation. It's a networking event, so that's exactly what they're expecting you to do. But listen to what's going on and pay attention to how those two people are interacting. You will learn so much about both of those people, how they deal with interaction, and how you can interact with them that makes them the most comfortable. This is all about reading their body language, checking out their tone of voice, seeing the kinds of things that they're talking about to other people. It's almost a little bit of a form of eavesdropping, but it's a very powerful tool, especially when you're in groups. It is also very important in the same situation when you're one-on-one, but it is so valuable when you're in a group, because this way you can help yourself meld into the conversation and start to open up conversations, and when the time is appropriate, tell people about who you are, because also that's obviously one of the main reasons why you go to a networking event. But do not, under any circumstance, just go up and start talking to somebody. One, it's jarring, and two, you don't really know who you're dealing with. If you can listen and see and look before you start to have those conversations, they're going to be much more meaningful conversations. Plus, you're going to also be able to qualify whether or not you really want to talk to this person or not, because either you don't mesh personality wise, they're in a kind of business that you're not particularly interested in working in, whatever the case may be. But it's all about qualifying, because that's going to help you have more meaningful interactions and build more meaningful relationships. So that's one of the main tips that I would make sure that you do when you're trying to build rapport and open up contact with people, either in a group or one-on-one. So let's talk a second about actually when you first meet somebody, whether it be in a group or one-on-one. What do? You introduce yourself. And it's very important to maintain eye contact. When you are speaking to somebody, before you even shake their hand, make sure you make eye contact with them. There's few things that happen in those split seconds. Trust. When you don't look at somebody in the eye, they're thinking A, that you're either shy, that you might be shifty. There's all kinds of things that not direct eye contact will do. Then, of course, you're going to shake their hand. Give them a firm handshake. Depending on what the situation is, you may even bring them into you a little bit, because I know sometimes, men will do that. Sometimes it's a little bit different when you're dealing with females, but you want to show that you're confident and that you're focused on them and you're interested in them, their name, you're interested in getting to know them, and you're interested in starting a dialogue. If you're looking around and you're doing other things and you're looking at the floor, that sends all kinds of different signals to somebody. It's like, wait a minute, this person's not even confident enough to say hello. I know I'm not going to be doing business with them. These are the things that are subtle that make all the difference in the world. And I also learned not only to do that for myself, but also learn now, even today, when I meet people and they don't look me in the eye, they shake your hand, they kind of timidly reach out their hand. That says to me there's a lack of confidence. They're not comfortable in those situations. Now, that doesn't make them bad people. But what that does tell you is that either you have to deal with them differently because they have a different kind of personality than yours. And then, of course, there's lots of techniques of matching people's personality and things like that. But we're talking about what happens in the first few seconds of meeting somebody. These are things that you really need to pay attention to because it's going to help you in starting to build that relationship. We all know different kinds of people, and so many different kinds of people are absolutely awesome. But you have to know who you're dealing with. And if you don't pay attention to those little signals when you first meet somebody, you're going to miss the mark. One, you can also scare the hell out of them too if you are way overbearing and there's somebody who's more subdued. So pay attention to those. If you're ever anxious or nervous about going into, it could be a meeting, a one-on-one, it could be a networking event, it could be a performance, it could be anything where you're going to be interacting with people, some of which you may not know, or it's creating anxiety for you. I'm going to tell you what I do. And I tend to do this actually anytime before I go on stage, is I take a minute. If I can get to a place that's a little bit quieter before I go on stage, that's always ideal for me. I relax. I take a deep breath. I exhale, generally through my nose. I'll take a deep, deep breath and then exhale through my nose. And I close my eyes. And then I go. And that really kind of centers you before you're going to go into a situation where you are perceiving that there's going to be anxiety. It helps tremendously to focus you and that you're not going to actually make mistakes in your presentation or whatever it is going to be. It helps to really bring you to earth. So that's a tactic that I have been using pretty much my entire career. But as I said, I tend to use it a lot when before I go on stage. Now, let's talk about an example. So let's just say you're going in to see your boss and you're going to ask for a raise, okay? You go through your preparation. Certainly, you take your second, you take your deep breath, you're feeling ready to go in, okay? You got yourself focused and you're straight, and you walk into the office. First thing you want to do is assess the situation, meaning assess what kind of mood that person's in at that particular point in time. You're coming in to ask something that's very important to you. But at that very moment, it might not be very important to them. You have to be astute enough to read the room and read the individual and find out what kind of mood they're in. If they're in a bad mood, it's not like turn around and run away. If they're in a bad mood, that's also an opportunity to further your rapport with that person. Sit down with them and acknowledge that they're in a bad mood and say, hey, this might not be the perfect time for talk about this. If there's anything that's going on that I might be able to help you with, let me know. If you want to chat a little bit about why you might be in a bad mood, whatever the case may be, there's a way in which to do that, and that actually will help you strengthen your relationship. Don't just jump in, walk in the door and say, okay, I'm here because I want a raise. Not knowing what state of mind that person's in on a different day at a different time or a different situation, you may have gotten that raise and actually gotten a larger raise. Or the person's going to say, no, you're not getting a raise not because you didn't deserve the raise, it's because you caught them at the wrong time. So you have to be cognizant of that. Those are some of the things that really are so important. Don't always be focused on what it is you're trying to achieve. Make sure that you understand that the person that you're talking to is a human being and they may have other things going on. So be cognizant of that, and that's going to help you not only be successful in your interaction, but also build a deeper relationship with that individual. So let's talk a little bit about delivering your message. When you're trying to explain something to someone, again, whether it's a raise or whether it's something else, delivering your message is very important. And you also have to understand that the way you think about something and the way you articulate something may not be understood by the person you're talking to. So what you're going to want to make sure that you do is to check along the way. Like a technique of, you know what? I really think I'm doing a great job, and I really think that there's things that are going on in the company, and I have some suggestions, but I wanted to know if this is something that you'd be interested in. Does that make sense to you? Things of that, check along the way, because that person might not be in that frame of mind. They're like, look, I don't care what you think about the company right now. I'm focused on something else. But if you check in those little bits along the way, you can make sure you don't go too far astray. And you're also checking that they understand where you're coming from and what it is that you're trying to tell them or what it is you're trying to convey. So do those little checkpoints. Like I said, it's as simple as, does that make sense to you? And look at what the response is. And then if the response is something that is positive and affirmative, you can continue. Then the next step on that would be not just does that make sense to you, but find out in a way that they really understand by saying it in a different way and making sure that they understand what it is you're trying to get across, especially if it's something complicated. Obviously, if it's something simple, you don't need to go the extra step. But those are some of the things that are going to help you move along your communication and build those relationships at the same time. We all need clarification because we don't think alike. So keep that in mind. And then there are some questions at the end of your message that can be very helpful, like, do you feel the same way? Or is there anything I can do to better my performance or move forward in the company? Or is there anything that I'm doing that I'm not doing correctly? Open up those questions so people know that you're also interested in self-growth, okay? It tells them that you're interested in being a team member, you're interested in learning, and you're also trying to find out from them if, in fact, you are doing a good job, but doing it in a questioning way, not in a, I know I'm doing a good job. That's never going to be the way you're going to get things over the net, so to speak.